New movie, right? The one where he which is funny. I'm sorry, was there any spoiler alerts? Oh, snap! My name is Mena, and most people know me as Spider-Man. I started an organization called Heart of a Hero, where I visit kids who are terminally ill, battling life-threatening illness, special needs, homeless, fostered, all around the world as Spider-Man. And we just go to bring kids inspiration, tons of toys, laughter, and joy in moments that could be, that are most likely their most difficult moments in their lives, if not their final moments in their lives. In early 2014, I moved back to California with $300 in my pocket, and I found myself in Pittsburgh, California on a friend's couch. My friends Kristen and Michael graciously let me occupy their couch to get back on my feet. While I was, looking for jobs, I found a personal training job, fitness. And it was cool, but I could only count to 10 so many times in one day, and it being that inspiring for me. So I knew that there was still something that was missing out of my life, something that I needed to do for the world. And it wasn't until one night in June of 2014 where I fell asleep on that couch that I was living on out of a duffel bag with $300 in my pocket, where I had a dream that my grandmother, who had recently passed, in October of 2013, she came to me in the dream, put her arm around me, and walked me down this corridor to this movie projector, an old school movie projector, turned it on, and a movie of Spider-Man shot in the sky, and he walked through these double doors, and there was thousands and thousands of kids in this drastically huge, gigantic room, this hospital room. And all these kids were laying in hospital beds. They were hooked to tubes and IVs and all these kinds of machines. And he was just swinging around, and he would kneel down to their bedside, and they'd suddenly bust out with laughter. And I looked at my grandmother while this is happening on this huge screen in the sky, and I asked her, I said, "That's awesome, Grandma, but what's it have to do with me?" And with the most serious look on her face, she looked at me and said, "That is you. And when you wake up, this is what you'll do." I literally woke up at that moment. I Googled Spider-Man suits, realistic Spider-Man suits, and after going through tons of, Party City puffy muscled suits, I got to this individual who runs an organization who makes suits. Contacted him. He quoted me $3,000 for the first suit, and I basically was about to give up the mission right there because I had $300 in my bank account, like I said. He asked me what I was going to do it for. I told him it was a real simple idea. I want to visit sick children as Spider-Man. And he said, "Wow, that's amazing. I'll do it for material cost." And he took the price down to $1,400, which was still way out of my price range. I remember getting up, looking out the window, pondering what I could do to come up with this money. And I remember looking outside, and I had a Chrysler 300 Dub Edition, fully loaded, that I had paid off years before. It's the only thing of value that I had to my name. And the first thought that came to my mind was, you have to sell this car. And so 2 days later, sold the car for $11,000, bought a small Honda, paid for the first suit, and that's where it all started. Thousands of people since the beginning of my journey have asked me, how do you still believe in God, or how do you still pray to a God that allows this to happen to children? And my answer is, you're giving God credit for something He didn't do. God didn't give kids cancer or illnesses, and I don't believe God gives anyone illnesses. We're talking about a God who gave us His own Son, who sacrificed His own Son for us. I believe that God actually gives people a platform through their struggles to inspire others. And that's what He's done with these children. If anything, God is bringing them light, hope, in the eye of a tragedy, in the middle of a tragedy. He's bringing families together, communities together. That's God's plan to share the inspiration and love with the world, and to show how communities can come together. Last year, 2017, a child named Zamora Moon passed away, and then 2 weeks later, after her, Daryl Akins passed away. I named these two specific children because for the first time ever, without a Spider-Man suit on, I held two kids as they passed away in my arms. After those two kids passed away, in the same month, 3 other children I was extremely close to passed away, so 5 in 1 month. A day after the last child passed away was July 26th. I started experiencing debilitating anxiety. After going to the doctor and seeing mental professionals, health professionals, I was diagnosed with PTSD, general anxiety disorder, and depression. It came out of nowhere. I walked in the name of God for 3.5 years with no fear. And all of a sudden, here I was. And what happened was I couldn't leave my house. I had to take a month off from being Spider-Man. As a matter of fact, within that month, I didn't know if I was going to be able to do this. Here's a guy who traveled the whole world, 4 kids, was speaking on large stages, wasn't afraid of crowds. All of a sudden, I couldn't handle one-on-one conversation with the closest of friends without nearly passing out. I didn't know where to go. I prayed to God, and in those moments, I was in this very house here with my head buried in the pillow, screaming to God with tears, asking him what was going on and why me. A friend, Dustin of mine, Dustin and Taryn Kelly, who go to Northgate Church in Benicia, he contacted me and wanted me to go to church, and I was like, I'm kind of afraid. There's a lot of people there. I'm in a room. I don't want to deal with that. I'm going through this. I'm not the same person, Dustin. And he was like, I totally understand, I understand. So we put it off for a couple weeks, and then one morning he just showed up. He basically took me hostage to go to Northgate, and I went to my first service, and I'm out in public, and I was so scared that I was so lightheaded and nervous. I thought I was gonna pass out right there in church as Ken was giving his sermon and all this stuff. But the music really just spoke to me. The overwhelming sensation of God that I felt that I had lost because this mission got so serious, that I was so close to death, and the negativity and the sadness, that I lost that overwhelming sensation of goodness in God. Even though it was still there, I just couldn't feel it. And when I went to church that day, I felt it again. It's rejuvenated me as a human being underneath the suit to find the strength again through God and through the community at Northgate. It's literally has been the biggest part of my survival. And now I know that I can continue to do it with the community at Northgate, with God, with Jesus, my wife. If people want to get in depth and hear these stories of these kids, follow us on Heart of a Hero or my personal pages, because my unique way of writing frames what the kids are going through. And so if you want to hear any of their stories, please come to the page, check it out. You don't even have to follow. I know it's hard to follow my page. Not everyone can handle what I'm posting, but there's always avenues to help with what I'm doing. I take myself out as the middleman. As far as helping, I don't need you to donate to us to help the kids. You can donate directly to them. My job on this planet in my life is to highlight what these kids are going through and bring the resources that God's giving me to them.